Hey Gators, it's Taya.
And I'm Sam.
Welcome to the SwampCast.
We hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for coming. Like and subscribe if you get a chance, and let's hop on the video.
Now the most monstrous creation of all, the return of Perfect.
I am the greatest alive. Yeah. I am the greatest alive. Yeah. I am the greatest alive. Yeah.
Thank you everybody for coming this week to the SwampCast. We're here with Jason from Huddle Up. We're going to be talking a little bit mental health and him sharing his story for the school as we have a big meeting coming up within the school that I'm sure many students are looking forward to. Jason, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. Coping.
Yeah.
Okay, so recently we had the opportunity to meet with you, Jason, and you told us about why you started Huddle Up. Would you like to share your story to our listeners and kind of why you decided to start Huddle Up?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you Cole's Notes version because I'll spoil the assembly if I give you a little too much, right?
Yeah.
But I started because I experienced bullying myself in high school. And so when I started it back then, I started it because I'd gotten a job with the Argonauts. Years went by, and when I reflected back on my life, I'd realized that I'd gone through bullying, and it was something that had scarred me. And I wanted people to have the opportunity of not having to go through it. Like it's better if we fix it before it happens than to think of fixing it later, right? It's prevention, and that's what this whole thing was about. And I started it when I got a job with the Argonauts. So I started as a ball boy with the team, grew up with the team until I moved into the office. Once I was in the office, that's when I had the inspiration to start a community program. And that's when I started this program. So it's in its 20th year. This is a celebratory year for us, 20 years. Even though we're virtual, it's still going to be a fantastic presentation. I know I already spoke with some of the athletes, and they're really looking forward to it. And a lot of them have a lot of stories that it's unbelievable that they go through it, and they're from the GTA, so it's not like they're far removed from many of us.
Yeah. Well, I know many people that you wouldn't expect to have heard from that say they've been bullied or affected by it in some way, whether it was them or a sibling, or just even someone that they're close friends with, that just from the time that we've had it in our school and the opportunity we've been given to be able to use the program to give our students just a voice to be heard within the school, and it's had a really big impact.
Good stuff. That makes me really happy in the sense that when I do this program, for me, it's, I can go around, I can share my story, but if nobody does anything with us sharing our stories, then there's no point. What I always say, and I say this all the time, is I don't want people to feel sorry for what happened to me. I want them to take what happened to me or what they take from other people's learned experiences and fix what's wrong. I was bullied because of my size, right? And some people are bullied for so many reasons, whether it's racism, it's discrimination, it's religion, whatever the case may be, we need to address it. We need to address it before it really gets too much. And before we're sitting there watching it on TV and saying, that's horrible what just happened. Well, if we can do something about it, we don't have to keep looking at it and saying, I wish we did something about it. Now we can.
Yeah, and I feel like because Huddle Up is kind of more of like a local thing, everyone knows MLSE, everyone knows the Raptors and the Leafs, and I feel like people can maybe connect to it more or feel like they want to do something more because they know of it. It's a different feeling from just seeing a random person on the TV that you don't know about.
You have to look at it as, we're sports teams, the Leafs, the Raptors, the Argonauts, Toronto FC. They're all professional athletes in a locker room, but it's about inclusion. It's about acceptance. And what they go through every day is not much different than what you might go through or what somebody in an office goes through. It's a work environment. It's an environment where you don't have to be best of friends with everybody in your school. That's unrealistic, right? We don't expect everybody on that team to be best of friends, but they get along. And you have almost that expectation that you can speak freely and not have somebody shoot you down for what you said.
Based on the feedback you've received from schools, because I remember you saying you've obviously heard a lot of good stories from schools about things people have started doing that's really made a positive impact. Has there been one specific thing that's kind of stood out to you that Huddle Up has had on schools?
It's so many, because 20 years of history, there's so many different things I've heard of, but I've received letters from people we've helped, people who have been bullied, and some letters are just like, one person actually said that they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Huddle Up sending the message, because then they realized they weren't alone. Those kind of things really stick with you. But then the positive measures of people who aren't being bullied. An elementary school, a parent wrote to the school to talk about her son who went in the middle of his hockey locker room and broke up some guy's picking on someone else on his team, right? And they always did it every day. And he stepped in the middle and said, guys, like, come on, we're a team here and everything. And she said, she asked him, like, what really made you do that? He said, it's like a team thing with the Argos when they came to talk to us. That's what I wanted to show, is that it's not worth it. And, that's where you see individuals and then groups like yourselves, where you start different things to talk about it. Even just talking about it is a step in the right direction, right? Conversation about it, that's a step in the right direction. If we sit there and we hide under a rock and pretend it's not there, you're never going to address a problem. It's going to be really bad, right? We've heard so many stories of positive measures that these schools are doing. And, every time we hear something, I mean, believe me, if I get a letter, I don't just keep it to myself. I show the players. It's like, if I should say it this way, and it's like a virus of positivity, right? Right? We want to spread that. We want to spread that. We don't care if we catch it. We want to spread that. And that is what I'd like to see happen. So
absolutely.
We'll turn the news on sometimes and we'll hear about a bullying incident, or we'll hear about something on social media, somebody getting bullied, and we'll read about it, and it'll really hit us, right? It'll hit us. And at one point, it'll hit us so bad, we'll be like, are we wasting our time? Is this like, but then you'll have the positive things that will tell you, no, don't give up. Right. And that's what we need to hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So knowing that Huddle Up is all about being a leader and helping others, and knowing this month is all about mental health.
Yes.
How important is a good team captain in keeping their teammates' mental health in check, like during a rough part of the season or like a rough part of the game?
The big thing about mental health is everybody's different. So especially on a team, you're going to have different ways people deal with things, right? Let me give you an example. There was a bad injury on the field. I mean, I was an equipment guy on the sideline. We actually had therapists come in to talk to us because it affected everybody's well-being. After seeing an injury like we saw, these guys have to go play again. And they see this injury that was probably career ending for this teammate of theirs. They needed to have that talk, somebody talk to them. Well, a captain or a leader on a team is that person too, that once in a while can turn to somebody and say, how are you feeling today? Right. And it's something as simple as that. And that's what I always encourage people is, when you ask somebody, how are you doing today? Wait for that answer, because a lot of people say, how are you doing today? And you expect to hear, good, right? And you walk on, right? And you keep going. But sometimes you'll get this response where it's like, yeah, I'm all right. And deep down, they're not okay. But you almost say, I really don't have the time to listen to it today. And take the time. You ask, take the time. They might need that listening ear, right? And that's what I always say, like our captains and our teammates, they'll ask you and then they'll wait for that answer. When they get that answer, then they realize it's like, that person needs some help. And it's important. Mental health is so important for everybody, especially with what we're going through right now.
Absolutely. Well, I know a lot of people that I'm friends with that when it comes to school and it comes to everybody being stuck inside their house, you start to get cabin fever. And when it comes to you feeling bogged down like that, it can affect like so much, from your schooling to little things like you not wanting to do little hobbies that you typically enjoy, or you not wanting to work out, or you don't want to do things that you just typically love to do. So it's something that when you're able to connect with each other and finding ways to do it and just listen to each other, it helps people so much. It's something so easy to do.
It's so important that you say that, because we're social animals, right? We're social beings. I mean, we need to socialize, right? We're not put here to lock ourselves in a room for 100 years from birth till we leave, right? That's not what we're about. We're about socializing, right? And that's what it is. School is important for education, absolutely important for education, right? We're always learning, because look, I'm still learning online during this pandemic. I'm going on learning things on university sites and signing up for courses and whatnot, always learning. But what school brings for you is that social being, that whole socialization. It's so important. And that's the one thing in like our Huddle Up message is about, healthy relationships. It's building those healthy relationships with each other. And look, at home, how do you have those healthy relationships with your friends? I mean, you're looking at a screen. Now we're starting to see more and more that this is great, but it's not the end all and be all, right?
Absolutely.
That's why they call some of these things the iPhone, because it's about I, not we. And I mean, I say this all the time, is that when I never had this, I found myself really talking to people more, knocking on the door, right? Knocking on their door. You go for a walk. Then when you have technology, you're like, oh, well, I can just stay at home and see the world. But now we see it's not the only thing we need, right?
Yeah, I know like all different teams of sports, like they'll all have a different dynamic. And I think it all goes back to that. I was the team captain for the volleyball team. And we all kind of knew each other from like the community or like friend to friend. But when it came to that check-in part, we were all there for each other when we saw, okay, maybe they need help. Like really by the end of the day, my job was go up for the coin toss and, you know, make sure everyone brings their jersey and shows up on time. But the whole mental check-in, because of that dynamic we had, we were all there for each other.
Well, a team, volleyball team in high school is not much different than the Raptors the way they are. Honestly, the only difference is obviously they play in front of a lot more people and for a lot more money. But the whole aspect of team doesn't change and should not change as you go on. That's the thing about the whole thing about team. It's good that you say captain. And captain's not just someone who makes sure they perform out there on the field. It makes sure everybody is okay, right? I mean, that's a good captain. A good leader doesn't sit there and say, well, I'm a great captain. Look how good our team is. No, a good captain is we're winning because we're good. We're all good. And you need to keep that in mind because what a lot of teams do is the starters are the most important. Everybody else is not. Every single person that puts that jersey on or that practices with your team is extremely important for your success. Bottom line.
So, Jason, obviously being a team captain, you have to be kind of that person that everybody goes to. And often people find themselves in that situation, even if they aren't on a team. And it's always important to be there for people.
Yeah.
However, for those people that are the person that everyone finds themselves going to, what advice could you give to those people?
That's an excellent question. Excellent question, because that happens to a lot of people. Understand that there's always somebody for you to go to. Like our captain has other people he can go to. They can go to the coach. They can go to the GM. They can go to another player. I mean, just because you are the captain and then this person's not the captain, because if you sit there and say, I'm the captain, I better not be asking for help. You should be level. You're the captain because you're a leader, yes, but it's level. And when you need help, it's okay to speak about it. And the biggest thing is if you're bottling in your issues, you're only shouldering all these issues on top. So, you know, you have your own problems and all of a sudden the person beside you on the bench is telling you these problems. The person over here is telling you these problems. You have your own problems. You're trying to solve their problems. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're going to be overwhelmed. So you need to look after you. The bullying that happened to me in high school affected my mental health as an adult, right? And I had to go for professional help. So while I was going for help, one of the things I was told is you need to look after you. Yes, there's a lot of things you have on the go, but you make sure you are good. When you can look after you, then other things can start to fall into place. If you aren't feeling good, everything else is not going to fall into place. You need to make sure you feel good. And that's the one thing that I always had trouble with, right? And so that's what if I can give you some advice, get that help to make sure you feel good.
Absolutely. It's like the cliche, you have to love yourself before you can love somebody else.
Absolutely. Help yourself before you can help someone else, right?
Exactly. Because if you don't feel good, you can't necessarily lead by example too. If you're going to be a captain and you're going to try to help people, you can't really help people if you're worrying about yourself because you can't really dedicate yourself to them.
Absolutely. And the advice too, there you go. You just said something good. You have to lead by example. Right? You can't tell someone, hey, listen, you shouldn't be yelling at that guy on the team. You shouldn't be doing that, or you shouldn't be pushing her around like that. And then you go and do it, right? Those moral values have to be for you as well. Not just you can say them, but you don't believe them.
Exactly.
That's not the way it works.
And we've been doing a lot of talk about teams, like captains and the players, but I honestly feel like coaches are a part of that team. They're a part of that family. So I've had different volleyball coaches, and they've all done an amazing job of being part of that family and being more than a teacher, more than a coach. And I find myself still going to them with things that I need help with that have nothing to do with volleyball because they were there for me. It's kind of with the captain thing. It's not like captain, players, coach. We all a team, and I think the coaches play a role in that. And you can go and ask them for help too. Like they're
for anything.
Right? Yeah.
For anything. And this is the thing. You're going to hear when I bring an athlete to your school, and most of the athletes that I ask, who's the biggest influence in your life, a lot of them will say their coach, and not because of on the field, because that coach was there when nobody else might have been there for them. That coach can become a person that you speak to, you might know this guy, Mike Pinball Clemens.
Yep.
He's our general manager now. He was on the sidelines. He was actually a player. He was a coach. He was a vice president. He was a lot in our organization. But every time, whatever role he was, he called me. He called everybody. He doesn't look at somebody and say, oh, they're just one of our teammates or they're just down. He called me almost every week during this pandemic. He's called almost everybody. He's called alumni to see how they're doing. And he's doing that because he's checking in as a coach. And that opens the door for everybody else. That tells me, you know what? He's listening. He's authentically listening to what I need to say. And I feel for him because how I have to ask him, how are you feeling? Right? Because he's always asking all of us. Your coach is there for you. You'd be surprised at the impact your coaches will have on your life, things that they'll say to you.
Yeah, and I have a little medical condition, and I was in science class one day, and I was like, I need to get out of here. As my parents weren't picking up their phone, so I headed down to the gym, found my coach, and I was crying. I was like, I need your help. She took to the other room, and she took care of me. And without hesitation, as soon as my parents didn't call, I'm like, that's what I'm going to go see because we have that bond connection. I don't know what you want to call it, but
right. And that's the key, right? And what I say is there's going to be a lot of students in your school. They might be into the arts. They might be into academics. They might be into something else aside from athletics. And they might think, oh, this doesn't apply to me. I'm not part of a team. What you have to look at is that you look at your school as a team. There are coaches in your school. There are people you can turn to. There are people you can talk to. And that's what I always tell people. Yes, I played only high school football. I never played football organized after high school. But I'll tell you what, that team atmosphere of me being in the office and all that didn't matter that I didn't play because you're still part of that entire team. And so that's the key here because you got to rely that every single person is part of that team needs to have responsibility for everybody. The fact that there's still bullying and hatred, like racism going on, really bothers me because I can't bring myself to looking at someone and saying, well, they're unique in their way and I'm going to push them away. That's a really bad way of living. Yeah, it really is.
So obviously Huddle Up is a big success. It's Huddle Up. It's pretty well known. Did you face any setbacks when you were trying to start up Huddle Up or any doubts?
Absolutely.
Or anything?
Oh, yeah. Listen, when you're in a professional organization, right, you're in a sports organization, community in sports, you do it. And the biggest thing about, community is you're always going to have pushback from someone. When I first started calling schools, some schools were like, yeah, I don't know if we really need any bullying prevention. 20 years ago, it was, well, we have our own ways. What's an athlete going to know about bullying? And it's not about what the athlete knows about bullying. It's what experiences we can share that might help someone. So it was convincing people that we are taking this serious. Hey, we get new ownership in. You have to convince them again that what you're doing makes sense. You're doing this, and you're out in the schools and you're doing this. You have to convince them, right? You're all set back so many times. But if I gave up, then we would never be here. We wouldn't be doing it, right? Yeah. I just kept fighting for it. And that's the main thing. That's the key. That's the big key.
Well, we obviously noticed, like we said, and we could say it 1,000 times because it's true, in our school alone from how long we've had it, which last year we didn't really get the opportunity to do as much as we wanted to, but this year we've had the opportunity to kind of get the ball rolling right from the get-go and put out stuff on our social medias or try to do things from when we were in school. And we've obviously noticed a lot of engagement from our students who, whether it being, we had like a bingo where somebody could win like a Wilson branded bag, or nice. We had little things where people could just share what was going on in their life, or we've had plenty of things from opportunities for them to share their mental health, as well as like weekly challenges that people have got involved in it. And it's brought a lot of people together despite not being able to see each other. And for the grade 9s, we know it can make a big difference because they haven't been able to meet anybody, but at least they still have a sense that the school is their home and people are there to listen to them and give them hope. Exactly. It's all this is giving people hope. That's what this is all about, because the minute you lose hope, that's when you've lost. It's giving people hope that there's a better tomorrow. And that's what gets you through the tough times. And you guys, you impressed me quite a bit when I was on the call with you, knowing the different things you already started to do and you've already worked on things like this. You guys really put an effort into making it work. And if you continue to do this, you will always have a positive culture because you've built it. And it's something that has to be built. When you hear, and I go back to sports analogy, when you hear a team's on a rebuild, it doesn't happen overnight.
When you hear a team's on a rebuild, get ready, brace yourself for some bad
A couple
seasons.
rough seasons.
Oh boy. I've been through a couple of rebuilds, and you'll have a 4-14 season or a 3-15 season, and you're like, I can't do this. But then all of a sudden you realize the long-term picture, and that's what you've got to do is look at it long-term. You're going to fix things. It's going to take time, but you're building a culture.
And you eventually start to see every season the record starts getting better.
Hey, we had some losing seasons, 94, 93, 94, 95. We were pretty bad. And then all of a sudden we won 96 and 97.
Yeah.
And we had Doug Flutie. And then, we'll have our good years. Like I have 6 Grey Cup championships, but I can't tell you, they all came back to back.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like they were all spread out. Look how long it was before the Raptors built a winner.
Absolutely.
20 years it took them.
It was a while, but
And
we got there.
There it is, right? And there you're sitting there and you're like, holy cow, we just won the championship. But it takes time, right?
Absolutely.
And that's key, though. How do you I'm turning this to ask you a question, but how do you cope when, you have difficult times? Like what's your coping mechanism?
Well, I like to work out. So we have stuff in our basement where I can, go ride on a bike for a little bit, or I can lift weights, or I have a couple hobbies that I like to do. Like I make fishing lures because I like to fish. So
Nice.
I got stuff in my basement where I like to do that to just take my mind away from school, because I think that's the biggest thing is everybody's very locked up in school right now because it's different. So you have to learn. So essentially my way is just get away from your computer, get away from your schoolwork, do something that you don't think, essentially.
For me, depending on, I guess, how bad I feel like it is, I kind of tend to just don't really want to talk to anyone. Just let me do my thing. And then I tend to talk to I'm very close with my cousins. I do have those people I can turn to, and I feel like that helps. So I like to talk to people. I like to talk a lot. So talking helps me get through it. Yeah.
And that's important, and what I hope a lot of you guys do. And one thing I've learned is a lot of stressors come from external, right? So whether you turn the TV on, you see something that makes you fired up, or you look at something on Instagram and it gets you mad, or somebody posts something on TikTok, whatever it is that you just go, it infuriates you. But then we're forgetting about the simple things that we get to see, right? You walk outside, fresh air. Fresh air. It's little things. And that's one thing that I heard is that sometimes if you sit and appreciate the little things that you've taken for granted in the past, you'll start to go, man, that's something else. And I've started to do that a lot more. Yeah, it's taken me a heck of a long time to do that. But now that you do that, you realize, it's pretty simple. It doesn't have to be that complicated. And a lot of stressors. Like I tell you what, if I'm watching one of our games on TV, I have to put this thing away because the things that fans say are just horrible sometimes.
It's true.
That it's like they need our program. And I read it and I'm like, man, I put it away. I don't even respond. They take personal attacks at the players and I'm like, they're people. Right? They have feelings. And that's why I say, put the phone down, put everything away, turn it off. Just be you, who you are. It's discovering your interests, right? I like that.
Sometimes I'll take it out on my brother. He's younger than me. And
Right. This sounds really out there, but think of it when we were babies, right? What made us cry? Oh, we ate, we need to eat, go to the washroom, then sleep, right? That's it. And that's all we cried. That's it. Right? Nothing else really bothered us. Then we started to learn things and we let things affect who we are. You almost got to just take it in and say, you know what? I can't. And that's why bullying really affected me is I let so much bug me and so much irritate me that it tore up everything I had built up inside of me. And it destroyed me because I took to what these guys were saying about me to be the book. That's the way it is. So not great.
Obviously, Huddle Up has been a massive success, like we said before. And like you said, it's been 20 years since you started it. And I'm sure it will continue to keep growing. But do you have any specific future goals or just general future goals for it?
Yeah, well, every year the lessons are going to change in the platform. Stories will have similarities, but they'll be reflective to the lessons. There's going to be a lot about social justice in the years to come. This year, you and your school, as part of the Huddle Up program, will be invited to our 20th year celebration virtually. We're going to have some impactful people on a panel talking social justice and athletes from the different teams at MLSE. So that's what I'm really looking forward to because we're making an impact and I love sharing that information with everybody who's part of Huddle Up, right? So that's the first year goal, and for years to come, who knows where it's going to go.
I think the sky's definitely the limit for it.
Yeah, hey, listen, when I first started this, I never thought it would end up as a program that's not only with the Argos, but it's with the Leafs, Raptors, and TFC as well. Never would have thought in a million years that that's possible. And here we are. At our launch, I was beside a Raptor, a Leaf, an Argo, and they're telling me, man, what a program you got going here. It's incredible. You know, De Rosario from TFC, you know, he said to me, he says, you've done something incredible. And to hear athletes who are, you know, who have really accomplished
of their magnitude
to give me accolades is something I'd never expected to ever happen.
And I know you're impacting like lots of different people, lots of different ways. So like one of the things we did was go to school early, and we did chalk messages at all the entrances. Before I joined Huddle Up, if someone told me you'd be going to school before school started, you'd have to wake up at 7 a.m. to go, I would have been like, no, yeah, I would have laughed. But then, you know, Miss Palmer, like our teacher, would send out a reminder. I'm like, yeah, I want to go. That sounds fun. I like the people involved. I like the message. Let's do it. And I want to put in that dedication. And so I know you guys have been impacting people in so many different ways. That doesn't just have to be bullying. It could be getting up at 7 a.m. and going to do something.
Anything, right? And that's the thing. The doors are open. Opportunities are endless. Sometimes they'll tell us about an event and I'll be like, oh man, it's like real early. And you're like, oh, it was a Saturday this year, and they invited me, a few players, and we all went and we stood outside Daily Bread Food Bank and just took the food and put it into bins. And you didn't really realize the impact you were making until you see the people later getting the food. The people you're impacting by getting up at 7 a.m., you don't realize who you're impacting, but you're impacting people. Yeah. And that's it. It's a little sacrifice that you're making that's helping people.
Yeah. So we can imagine that Huddle Up, as you said, would be very rewarding for you and the teams and everyone involved. And you said you've been getting letters and hearing stories of the success that's had in schools all over. Has there been a big highlight for you since Huddle Up has taken off?
The countless letters are always a highlight. I mean, you don't expect them, which is really what is astonishing. They say, you know, if you make a difference in someone's life, it's a success. But when we've been getting letters, you're like, you really are helping people. And so that's a big highlight. And I've received a couple of awards for this at the Player Award. They have an award, the same awards, they award the top CFL offensive player, defensive player. They give an award for community one year. I was up on stage with all these guys and it felt amazing. But then in my head, I'm like, it was the same feeling as getting a letter, right? Yeah, the award is amazing. Don't get me wrong. But when I got a letter, that was my reward. That's my award.
Yeah.
That's the be all and end all. To know you help someone, that's a highlight. That to me is a highlight. And another highlight, you know, I helped out starting football in high schools that didn't have football teams. And so we started one. And years later, one of the players at our rookie camp taps me on the shoulder and he says, you don't remember me, but you were with the guys when they started my football team. I started with that high school and never played football. Now I'm an offensive lineman with the Toronto Argonauts. Cool. And he grew up in Jane Finch. And he said to me, he never would have made it anywhere if he didn't have a chance for football. And he was grateful. He remembered me. He remembered what I said. So much that when we won the Grey Cup 2 years later, and he was on the team, he remembered me telling him, because I brought my Grey Cup ring to show the kids and said, yeah, one day, guys, you can get this ring. You just got to work hard, okay? You got to work hard. He said, hey, remember that? I said, remember what? Because remember you said, work hard, you get this ring? I'm getting one now. Like, you know, that you just don't even, words can't even express what you feel when you know you helped someone. I wasn't the only reason why he got there, but to know you contributed to somebody's success. Yeah. And that's why I tell people all the time is you don't know the person you're helping. When you say something nice to someone, like when somebody's down and you say, hey, everything okay, man? You know, are you okay? Like you change their life and people don't realize the impact. Like you could be saving someone who becomes a surgeon that saves someone's life. That's what I try to tell people is you don't know where somebody's going to end up. So don't take anything you do for someone for granted.
Yeah. And obviously, like you said, the letter had the same impact as the award you got, but it just goes back to the small things matter. Little steps make a big impact.
You don't know what's going through somebody's head, right? Like you don't know that you held the door for somebody running to get the door. You don't know what kind of day they had up until that point. They could have had the worst day of their life and it's just nothing's working for them. And they need to get and their hands are full and you hold the door for them, it may just change the way they see the rest of the day. I mean, it's that simple. That's why I never take for granted, somebody asks me a question. I'm not going to sit there and brush it off because that might change what they think, right?
When it comes to like people writing you letters and stuff, I don't know if this would be a common way to look at it, but those people who are writing you those letters because you made that impact on them, they're giving you happiness. So they're already carrying on what you're doing. And I'm sure that that's not the only way they're going to be willing to spread that happiness. So it's just like a chain reaction of give and go of you give this person happiness, they'll give this person, they'll give it to this person. It just keeps going on.
It's the whole thing, pay it forward, right?
Absolutely.
Pay it forward. And look, you guys will see in the assembly, the guy that saved my life in high school, 30 years later, I connected with him. And you'll see it at the assembly. I have the clip and everything because it was on the news. To this day, we keep in touch now. We lost touch, but he had no idea how he saved my life. He watched me on TV. He even said he watched the movie Rudy with his son. He said to his son, he goes, see that guy, that Rudy? He goes, I had a guy in high school who was on my team. It's just like him. People would pick on him. People would push him down, but he kept getting up. And that's how he saw me, where I didn't see me like that. I didn't see me as one who keeps getting up. I saw myself as ready to give up. And he saw me differently. And because he did that, he saved lives. I could go on about these stories because they're really, to me, they're life-changing for me. But for other people too, you'll all have stories that you're going to reflect on when you get older and you're going to say, I remember this.
Growing up, I think with all the stories you tell us, one word that comes to mind is definitely resiliency. And I'm sure everybody's had a moment where they were resilient, whether you play a sport, whether you were into your academics, you play music, you're into clubs, you're into anything. I'm sure resiliency is massive. So what would you say resiliency means to you, and how would you say you can personally build your resiliency?
So look, I think resiliency is the best way to describe it is bouncing back when you get knocked down. And a lot of people, you need to have that resiliency to get through that next difficult moment, because there's going to be a number of times that are going to be difficult. You might get through one and say, whew, that's it. It's not it. It's going to happen again. Something's going to happen again. And if you don't have that resiliency, you're going to go back to square one again, right? Yeah. And sometimes in bullying, for example, having that resiliency will help you tell yourself, you can get through this. It's not that bad. This person does not get me. They don't understand me. That's why they're doing what they're doing. And then you bounce back from that and end up a better person. It's a losing season. An example is like games on the line. You have a free throw. You're about to shoot this free throw. You get the free throw. We win it. We go on. You miss it. You could sit there and feel so sorry for yourself and say, I blew it. I'm done. I'm finished. And that could ruin the rest of your career because you'll never recover from that. Or you could say, you know what? I'm gonna get better. I'll get better. Injuries. I compare it to sports. How many players I've seen? I saw a player. He tore almost all his ligaments in his knee in university. Like he said, so when am I going to get to play again? And doctor said, play. You're finished football. It's done. And that was everything he had dreamed of, everything he had hoped for. And he started working out, started getting better. He missed the draft. He was going to be the #1 draft pick. He was at York University, top player. We saw him getting better and everything. The Argo says, let's see. Got a tryout. Next thing you know, he's on the team. About 5-6 years later, he's a Grey Cup champion, the 100th Grey Cup. And Andre Dury. Yeah. And this guy blew his ligaments in his knee. He was finished. But resiliency got him back. And you hear those stories all the time. They're stories that every single one of us can have. I think that's what resiliency is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So many things can affect how you bounce back, why you need to bounce back, like all these things, right? So
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's up to you, right? It's in it for you. Like, you have to have that resiliency. Like, nobody else is going to tell you. You can have all the pep talks in the world by a coach, but it's up to the players. And the coaches can only say so much. That's it. Listen, I remember we played a game against the Alouettes one year. Pinball was coach. He just said, guys, he says, you guys realize that every single reporter out there picked us to lose by no less than 14 points. We have no chance. So we may as well get back on that bus and go home. We may as well just say that's it. But no, he said, it's up to you. And I remember that it was that year or the year after, there was a slogan he had. And it was, I think it was like the Gatorade slogan, but it was, is it in you? And they made shirts, is it in you? And it had our logo. If it's in you, then that's all. Nobody can take that out of you, right? Okay, maybe it won't be a storybook ending. You might not have won that game, but it doesn't mean you didn't give it an effort. You didn't give it an effort. I had a coach one year. And this is a true story. I don't believe I'm telling you guys this. My first year university, I take an anatomy. I was going into this course, biomechanics, and I was going into the exam, and I had like 30%. So I needed a miracle. I needed a Hail Mary pass to win, basically. Yeah. And so instead of studying for the exam, which I had on the Tuesday, and it was a Saturday, I went to the coach's party. He had people there, and they were having hors d'oeuvres and stuff. I said, I'm going to this party. What's the point of studying? I'm not going to pass. That's what I said. No word of a lie. I get there, and I'm eating and that, and he goes, how's school? And the coach was just talking to me casually. And he goes, how's school? I said, yeah, it's all right. He goes, yeah. He goes, aren't exams coming up? I said, oh, yeah. Because when's your next one? I go, well, Tuesday. You have an exam Tuesday and you're here? I said, yeah. But you know what, coach? Like, honestly, like I'm going in, like, listen, I'm going in with like 30%. I said, so realistically, I expect that I'm not going to do well, so I may as well just whatever, right? And he goes, you're really going to do that? I said, well, like I can't. Like, there's nothing I can do. It's too late. And he says, no, it's not too late. He says, what if we saw a team was so much better than us? We were barely going to make it. What if we said, nah, let's just let them play the game by themselves? No, you guys can't. You're getting paid to play. I'm not. And he goes, okay. He says, why don't you go home, study, and just give it a shot? He goes, if you don't try, you'll never know what could have happened. I was like, yeah, all right. Went home. I did write the exam. I got enough to just about pass. But the miracle was there. I actually did write it, and no, the story wasn't incredible, but I wrote it and got on the exam. I got close to 80%. That was a lesson learned for me. If you give up, then you'll never know what could have been, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I know when it comes to, I've had games with rugby where the game's really tight, and if you let one thing go wrong, then you'll be haunted by it for the rest of your life. So it's important essentially that you see something through to the very last whistle, and that you don't let yourself let off the gas until you know everything you could have possibly done is left out there on that field.
You need to leave it out there. And that's a cliche, right? Leave it all on the field. Yeah. Well, listen, I can't tell you the number of players I've seen where in film, they're watching and they'll see, because we're getting blown out, and they see a guy and this player's walking, and within a day or so later, the player's gone.
Yeah.
Because they say you let down everybody by saying, I'm done with it. Because you can't just be there in the good times and think that's it. You got to be there all the time. You got to give it your all the time, win or lose, right? And that's the same thing in life, right? Give it your all, do everything you can, and that's all you can do. That's it.
Absolutely.
One year, we, my volleyball team, we had a tournament in Penn State, and the tournaments are normally like 3 days long if it's in the U.S., whereas the ones here are like a day. So Thursday, Friday, we played maybe 3-4 games in both days, and we were undefeated. We won all of them. So the next day we walked into the gym, we told our coaches, we're like, oh yeah, like we're undefeated. People are talking about us. My coach was like, guys, you still need to bring the same intensity that you did the other days. Don't give up and think we're done. Like, we're going to win. He's like, you have to keep fighting. He's like, win or lose. He's like, as long as you fight, we're good.
You see, like, and you guys have to, it's about respecting your opponent, right? And no matter how good you are, don't look at your opponent and think, oh, no problem. Never, ever do that. Never underrate your opponent. We had a coach one year. If you taunted anybody or did anything to like disrespect an opponent, you wouldn't see the field. Like, he did not tolerate taunting. And it was, I remember his coach Tressman. I admire that, because your opponent is doing the same thing you're doing out there. And they're just trying to win. It's okay to celebrate. This is the difference between taunting and celebrating. Like, you score a touchdown, you do a dance, whatever, that's fine. But if you catch the ball over somebody and you taunt them, you're celebrating their failure, their mishap. You're not celebrating your success. You're celebrating their mistake. And that's not right, because that's not respect. And this comes back to Mental Health Week, because it's all about your mental game. It's about the mental game of life. It's how you treat every day.
Well, Jason, I'm sure we could sit here and talk for forever, yeah. But I'm sure you have important things you got to go to. We really appreciate you coming, and I'm sure everybody in the school will be very excited to hear from you soon. We can't say enough how much Huddle Up's done for our school, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
You guys are doing a heck of a job.
For sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I am the greatest alive. Yeah. I am the greatest alive. Yeah. I am the greatest alive. Yeah.
We hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you to our guests for coming.
We appreciate the view. Please like and subscribe if you get a chance, and we'll see you in the next one. See ya.